Hi, and welcome to the first ever video lesson for the Hippocratic Diaries. Again, we thank you for subscribing, and we're hoping that you're finding the information valuable. What we're going to be doing today is a Russian stomach massage, and I kind of dabbled in this a few years ago, but didn't pay much attention to it, and then as reminded again of it this summer when I went to a training camp, and ever since then I found it very valuable to do on a daily basis, and I'll just talk for a few minutes about why it's so important. First of all, on the physical level, what it's doing when you're massaging your stomach is you're cleansing a lot of the toxins out of your organs. That manual pressure and that manual manipulation of the organs is helping to push toxins out. You're helping to improve digestion by moving things through your colon and your intestinal tract. The other things you're doing is just helping to circulate blood and help to circulate all the digestive fluids, so everything's moving through and working better. Now there's another side to it. There's a psychological, emotional component to this, and how that plays into it is basically every shamanic system, whether it's Amazonian shamanism, traditional Chinese medicine, Siberian shamanism, all over the world, all the shamanic practices believe that emotions and psychology can get trapped into your organs and all over your body, really. So here's just a quick rundown of how that can play out. For example, in the gallbladder and the liver is typically where you're going to get anger and frustration trapped. That's where you're going to feel just a lot of angst about life, and anytime your liver is really stressed, that's usually when you're going to find you have a very short fuse. Your bladder and your kidneys, that's where fear and anxiety is trapped. And that's why when you're under a lot of stress, you feel so physically burnt out, is because it's actually doing a lot of damage to your kidneys. Your large intestines and your lungs, that's where we store guilt, grief, shame, and regret. And so you can, when somebody kind of finally divulges the secret that they've been holding on to for a long time, that's why they say it's like a big weight was lifted off their chest, because all of a sudden they're not storing all that shame and that guilt that was tied to that secret. The spleen and the pancreas, this is where we store worry, excessive sympathy, and when we're thinking too much, we're being over-analytical. Those are the organs that are getting stressed, the spleen and the pancreas. The small intestines and the heart, this is if we're overexcited all the time, or we're living in excess, overindulging in everything all the time, it can actually be quite damaging for our heart. So even though it feels fun for the time, that's why we need to have that even balance to life. And lastly, our thyroid and reproductive system. Whenever those are feeling suppressed or low, that's when we have a lack of purpose, we have a lack of passion and joy in our lives, and we just kind of feel hopeless and depressed. So even though we're not getting to all these organs with a stomach massage, it just gives you a picture of how emotions, when they're not dealt with properly, end up getting trapped in our organs. And this is just one way to help release those. And I think the more you play with the stomach massage, the more you're going to start feeling some sort of emotional release, some sort of psychological release as you're doing this. And this plays into more than just the stomach. Again, the deeper you go into this concept of emotions being trapped in the body, you'll find that it can actually happen in your joints and your muscles, and it can get very detailed to the point where just having anger towards one specific person in your life will actually result in joint pain and stuff like that. So it's a very powerful concept, and one too detailed to get into now, but it just gives you a glimpse of what can actually happen when we start playing with this stuff. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get down on the floor, and I'm going to start demonstrating the stomach massage. And we'll probably just do a brief overview of rough anatomy, so that way you kind of know what you're playing with and where it all is. Just a few tips before we begin. One, it is almost always done best lying down. If you don't feel comfortable lying down doing it, or you're not in a place where you can lie down, then you can do it standing up. Sitting is usually pretty awkward to do it, just because we don't have a nice open abdominal wall to do it then. Also, when you're doing it, you want to do it first thing in the morning. Okay, it's good to do it in a fasted state. If we have food in our stomach at all, it will feel uncomfortable, and you might compromise your digestion in some ways. The other thing is, you want to do it before you've done any sort of activity or anything. You want to make sure your breathing rate is really low and your heart rate is really low. If you have any sort of elevated heart rate, again, you'll probably feel uncomfortable and it will kind of impede your breathing. So just want to make sure it's right when you go to bed, you're nice and relaxed, you haven't had any food or drink, and basically just get down on the floor, get yourself in a nice relaxed state, and you're going to start working. So now I'm going to get down on the floor and we'll begin. Okay, so we're on the floor, and again, you're just going to let yourself completely relax. Again, if you're breathing too heavy or if you feel like your pulse is elevated at all, you'll probably feel some discomfort when doing this. Sometimes people find it valuable to draw their knees in just a little bit, and that will help take the stress off the lower abdominal region. If you have any tight muscles at all when your legs are stretched out, then the lower part of your abdominal wall will be really tight too. So usually drawing the knees in is comfortable for most people. Alright, so what we're going to do is we're going to start with just using your fingertips. And you're just going to dig in right here, just at the very top of your rib cage, right where your breastbone meets your ribs and it starts to divide there. Okay, and you're just going to be pressing in. And right now we're pressing on top of our diaphragm, which is going to be probably very uncomfortable for most people the first time they start doing it. The more you do this, the easier it will become. The biggest thing is that, again, very shallow breathing for this part, just because your diaphragm does control your breathing. And you're just pressing down as far as feels comfortable. So initially you might not be able to go down far at all, but as you do it more and more, you're going to be able to go down deeper and deeper. Alright, so relaxed diaphragm, just pressing in right there, dead center, just below the xiphoid process, which might be familiar if you've done any CPR training. It's that tiny bone. Okay, pressing down, and you just want to see if you can mentally work out the tension. Just get those muscles to relax. Just let the tension escape. The more tension you release, the more you'll be able to go down. Just working around slowly, digging down. Okay, now what we're going to do is slowly crawl with our fingers over, just about an inch or two. And again, we're still just pressing down as far as feels comfortable. And then you're going to work over, again, more to the right, just an inch or two. And at this point we should just be digging underneath the rib cage and see if we can go dig down a little bit further and get right underneath those ribs. Again, the more you do this, the more comfortable it gets, so don't be worried the first time if you can hardly press down at all. Okay, then we're going to go back to center, pressing down again. And slowly creep over to the left this time. Again, pressing down, digging with those fingertips, working them around a little bit in each spot. The whole time you're doing this, you're going to try and be conscious of any pain or discomfort you feel. Your body might tense up or flinch a bit if you get to a spot maybe where the organ is inflamed or you feel some sort of irritation. You just want to be mindful of that and maybe pay a little bit more attention to that spot. And it will clue you into some dietary changes you can make to get rid of that organ inflammation. Also some stress and lifestyle changes you can make to get rid of that. Okay, and again, digging underneath the ribs. Okay, now we're going to work down a little bit further. So we're basically just a few fingers below where we started. Okay, 3 or 4 fingers down. And now you're back to center, pressing down. Again, just as deep as feels comfortable. Just work it around. Okay, and in this spot we usually kind of feel our abdominal aorta, which is the big vein or big blood vessel that carries blood from the top of our body down to our lower body. And so sometimes it can feel a bit weird if you feel it pulsing, but just work around it. Okay, creeping over to the right again. You always want to be very methodical when you're doing this. Okay, almost always starting in the center, work to your right, and then go back to center and work to your left. That way we can make sure we thoroughly cover all the areas. Okay, a few finger foots over again, pressing down, working around. And again, we want to get right underneath the ribs too. Okay, back to center. And moving left. your ribs. Okay, moving down a few finger widths right now, we should probably be just around the navel. So pressing down. And working over to the right. Okay, so we're getting close to our appendix here. And this is where a lot of people will feel some inflammation, especially if maybe they have a diet that's too high in grains or the wrong kind of grains. Gluten intolerances, that kind of thing. Also, if you probably don't have a diet that's very high in roughage, you might feel some inflammation here, so just work it around. Keep going over to the right. Okay, back to center, right over the navel, and working left. And again, depending on your lifestyle, you'll definitely feel different things. Sometimes if you've had a hard night of drinking, you'll feel your liver being really, really tense. So it can really change from day to day. So just take note of what you feel. Look up on an anatomical chart what organs are inflamed, and then you want to work to make some changes to get rid of that inflammation. Okay, so now right underneath the navel, basically right over our bladder, and just pressing down and slowly working away over to the right. And we're right underneath the hip bones here, and see if you can dig your fingers under there even a little bit. Again, this is just breaking up any tension or calcification in the urinary area. Okay, working left. And again, trying to dig underneath the hip bones there. Good, and after you've done the whole stomach, really it breaks down nice and easily into about 8 sections. So 1, 2, 3, 4, okay, and then of course divided into half, right and left. What you're going to do is just kind of take your fingers and work all over, just digging all the way around. Okay, this part doesn't have to be methodical, it can just kind of be random, but you're just kind of working everything around. Again, trying to get nice even circulation. And during the massage, if you felt a particular point that was more tense than you thought it should be, maybe you want to give that area some more attention. Just work it around. And again, when you're all done, just relax your body completely, breathe deeply a few times, and just let everything relax. And whenever you feel ready, you want to get up slowly. Again, we've been putting a lot of pressure down there, and our circulation probably isn't what it should be, so just get up slowly so you don't feel lightheaded or anything. And that's basically the stomach massage, so I hope you can make that part of your daily practice. Again, it only takes a few minutes a day, and you're going to feel great doing it. So just play with that in your own time, and let me know how you feel.